Donald Trump's dark past is surfacing right before today's confirmation hearing. I will show you what's going down. Hat tip to MeidasTouch network host Katie Fang for being a major part of making sure Donald Trump's dark past is exposed. I'll show you what Katie Fang had to say in just a moment. But I also want to give a hat tip to the New Mexico Department of Justice. They called out the Trump regime in another scathing letter, and they've detailed how the Trump regime at every turn has obstructed turning over critical Epstein files regarding the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. And the New Mexico Department of Justice lays out a shocking timeline of the DOJ's obstruction. And now the New Mexico Attorney General explains that the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York is now absolutely refusing to cooperate on anything regarding Jeffrey Epstein, anything regarding Donald Trump's dark past, anything regarding the Zorro Ranch. The DOJ is in complete lockdown mode. And while the MAGA Republicans who are complicit in covering up child sex trafficking rings may be okay with Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing and Todd Blanche becoming the next Attorney General, I think this highlights to the American people that Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans, the White House, Blanche, they are the cabal. They are covering up child sex trafficking. They are a criminal enterprise, a RICO racketeering enterprise, in my opinion, covering up child sex trafficking. I'm giving you my opinion based on their cover-up of the Epstein files. Just take a look at what the New Mexico Department of Justice has to say, what their state AG has to say. Today, we sent another letter to the Justice Department, says New Mexico's AG, because that's where one of Epstein's properties are, Zorro Ranch. And that's the property that the DOJ previously refused to investigate, despite it being the situs where a lot of sexual assault and even potential murder was taking place. Today we sent another letter to the Justice Department, and this afternoon, SDNY called us. That's the Southern District of New York. That's the prosecutor's office out of New York. Called New Mexico's State Department of Justice to tell the state of New Mexico, we hereby state we will not be cooperating. We will not support anything that you're doing to investigate Epstein or anybody relating to Epstein like Donald Trump. How utterly horrific. Let's take a look at this letter from the New Mexico Department of Justice. This is to Todd Blanche, right before the confirmation hearing. Dear Acting Attorney General Blanche and Associate Deputy AG Pestana, the New Mexico Department of Justice writes to renew and make a final demand for access to the complete unredacted investigative record in the custody of the DOJ bearing on the trafficking and sexual abuse of vulnerable individuals at Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch. This request is specific and readily achievable. In-person review by the New Mexico Department of Justice personnel of the unredacted records that Maine Justice already holds, conducted subject to whatever security protocols and confidentiality conditions the DOJ deems appropriate. This demand follows more than 5 months of sustained outreach that has been met, where it has been met at all, with production so incomplete as to be functionally non-responsive. Absent access by July 31st, 2026, the New Mexico Department of Justice will treat this request as denied and will pursue all available legal remedies without further notice. I just want you to think about that. That even with the Epstein Transparency Act, Donald Trump's DOJ refuses to cooperate with the state of New Mexico in order to investigate child sex trafficking, child sex abuse, torture, murder, and other horrific conduct that the DOJ is aware of in New Mexico. They want to continue to cover it up. They're admitting that they want to cover it up. They're admitting it. Just think about it. This is how brazen it is, that they think that you don't care. So the White House and the DOJ says, we're not going to help you at all. Just take a listen to what the New Mexico DOJ says. The scale of the deficit by the United States DOJ, this is what New Mexico is saying, the scale illustrates why this remedy is necessary. By the Department of Justice's own assertion, the department's collection efforts under the Epstein Files Transparency Act identified more than 6 million total responsive records, of which approximately 3.5 million have been released to the public through the online portal. These publicly released materials, while clearly relevant based on contextual information, are so substantially redacted as to preclude meaningful law enforcement follow-up. Unredacted production is an investigative necessity, not an optional courtesy. Against this vast body of records, the United States Attorney's Office for the District of New Mexico produced a mere 31 pages on July 10, 2026, consisting almost entirely of documents already released through the federal government's portal. So I will show you over here what went down. So here's the timeline. February 13, 2026, New Mexico sent the federal government written correspondence. March 13th, a formal letter was sent to the federal government. April 1st, 2026, a telephone conference with the Associate Deputy AG in the federal government. May 3rd, 2026, a comprehensive letter submitted again to the federal government. May 29th, 2026, New Mexico sent a written follow-up to the acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche. June 4th to 5th, meeting requests directing the DOJ in D.C. To meet. June 30th, 2026, formal written demand transmitted to your office as a final request for compliance prior to the pursuit of legal remedies. July 10th, 2026, the federal government's office in New Mexico hand-delivered its production. 31 pages consisting of documents already released. July 13, 2026, contact was attempted with representatives from SDNY in New York to obtain materials that have been reportedly sent but not received. And then the U.S. Attorney's Office in SDNY says, we are not helping you. So just so you see what happened there. Finally, after 5 months of New Mexico saying, we need these records, we need these documents, you're covering up a child sex trafficking ring. Finally, right before New Mexico was about to file its lawsuit and pursue legal remedies against Blanche and Trump and the federal DOJ, the New Mexico federal office goes to the state AG. Remember, it's the state AG that's investigating. The feds are covering up the child sex trafficking, and they hand deliver. They have like an intern show up at the New Mexico's AG. Remember, state versus federal. The feds show up with 31 documents, mostly redacted, just 31. When we're looking for 3 million, they show up with 31 and they're all redacted, and they were previously produced in the Epstein Transparency Act stuff before. So they're covering up 3 million. They turn over 31. And so the New Mexico DOJ says absolutely, absolutely unacceptable. Now, in advance of today's confirmation hearing, Katie Fang just recorded a video as well. And she describes her lawsuit, which we've been covering extensively here on the MeidasTouch network, that she filed under the Epstein Transparency Act, where a federal judge in Washington, D.C., Judge Emmett Sullivan, ruled against Trump and Blanche and the Trump DOJ. And the federal judge ordered Trump, turn over the Epstein file documents, turn over the privilege log, the redaction log, remove the names of the co-conspirators, remove the people involved in the torture emails, produce the handwritten notes, do it. And then Todd Blanche and the Trump regime said, we're not going to do it, Judge. We're not following your order. And we're interpreting your order to produce as an order to show cause why we can't produce. And Judge, aw shucks, we can't produce. But Katie Fang is undeterred. Katie Fang's going to keep on pushing. And she said she's going to get these documents. Here's what Katie Fang just told us. Let's play.
And you'll recall, Todd Blanche says, we are here to protect the victim's privacy, trying to sit there and wear the white hat of justice and act like they actually give a shit about the victims and survivors in this case, which we know they don't. But Blanche is like attacking the court saying, oh, the judge wants us to out victims. Nah, I don't want the judge to out victims either. Let me be clear. If there's anybody who's been fighting to protect these victims and survivors, it's been me and others. So Blanche didn't produce the handwritten interview notes about the Donald Trump sexual abuse and physical abuse. You know what Blanche said? Blanche said, look, it's hard. It's just too hard, Judge. It's just too hard. And I said, tough shit. The law doesn't have a, it's just too hard. Or Blanche says, the handwritten notes? Trust me, bro. The handwritten notes are substantially similar to the 302s, the kind of official forms, the actual interview reports. Trust me, bro. It's the same thing or substantially similar. I don't have to trust you. And let me be clear, I don't trust you, Todd Blanche, or the Trump DOJ. And the law doesn't have a trust me, bro exception.
You know, it's funny what I decide to get picky about. The last time I got coffee, it took me about 5 reviews before I landed on my spot. But life insurance? Well, most of us took the first quote that we got and called it done. SelectQuote is a life insurance broker that does the homework for you. Their licensed agents shop over 100 policies and find you a better rate for free. With SelectQuote, getting life insurance is fast, free, and easy. The whole process takes about 15 minutes. Answer a few questions, their agents shop the carriers for you, and you get your quote tailored to your specific situation, even if you've got something like high blood pressure or diabetes. And you'll save an average of 30%. So let's do the math on that. If a policy costs $150 per month, 30% off is $45 a month back in your pocket. Over a 20-year term, that's more than $10,000. SelectQuote has been doing this for over 40 years. 11,000 reviews on Trustpilot, rated excellent. Listen, putting off life insurance could get really costly. Also, it messes with your peace of mind. Now that I know that my family is covered, I can sleep more peacefully at night. Get your free quote at selectquote.com/Meidas. That's selectquote.com/Meidas, selectquote.com/Meidas. They shop, you save.
More from Katie Fang right here explaining the process before she seeks contempt and likely criminal contempt against the Trump regime. Let's play this clip by Katie Fang.
One of my favorite sayings is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And I'm pushing hard, folks. I'm trying. I'm pushing it as hard as I can and as fast as I can. Remember, I brought this lawsuit at the very end of April of 2026. We are mid-July. This thing is going as quickly as possible based upon deadlines and other kind of timelines that are set forth by the rules of procedure. But in this instance, I want Blanche to have to pay a $1,000 fine every day until he actually has satisfied that portion of what is happening. Furthermore, because Todd Blanche just doesn't get it, he argued the same jurisdictional arguments he had made from day one against my preliminary injunction that had been rejected now twice by Judge Sullivan. Well, 3 times the charm to get, I guess. So he tried to re-up that again. And I, in my response, say, nope, that doesn't work. And then once again, as we know, Blanche asked the court for a 60-day stay of any relief or even a 7-day stay to seek emergency appellate review. And of course, for every time that they have asked, Judge Sullivan has said no, and we have told the judge there is no grounds. They have had a running head start until this became law on December 19th of 2025. And since then, 7 months ago, they still haven't complied. They don't need a stay. And that, my friends, is the crux of my response and my motion to enforce. I welcome your questions. I'm sure you have them. Put them in the comment section here. I urge you, if you haven't, like and subscribe, and then share this episode so that people understand why I have filed what I have filed and teed it up the way that I have. I've seen some of you ask, why didn't you just ask for him to go to jail? Why didn't you just ask for contempt? We're getting there, folks. But there are some necessary steps that have to be done prior to asking for things like contempt, enforcement of contempt through incarceration. I'm telling you, folks, we have to go through these processes. And at this moment, my job is to explain to Judge Sullivan how Todd Blanche's middle finger shouldn't be tolerated. And you may also ask yourself, well, shouldn't the judge know this himself? Of course he knows. But again, there is this process. Be mad, be outraged, demand accountability. I certainly am trying. And I don't think I've said this enough, so I'm going to say it clearly. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for your support. I'm grateful for the privilege of your time. I know you're out there cheering on this lawsuit, and I cannot begin to express my gratitude for that energy. We're going to get through this, and we're going to win. And in the meantime, I'm off to rattle more cages.
By the way, make sure you all subscribe to Katie Fang's YouTube channel. She is a real life hero for bringing this lawsuit and a real fighter, and it's an honor to have her as part of this network. Subscribe to the Katie Fang YouTube channel. Now, Democrats in the Senate, Senator Murray and Democratic Senator Van Hollen sent a letter to Todd Blanche in advance of his confirmation hearing today, saying the following. At the May 19th, 2026 hearing of the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee, we asked whether you would meet with Epstein survivors if we connected you with them. You, Todd Blanche, responded absolutely. So it has been nearly 2 months since then, and even though we provided the Department of Justice with the point of contact for the Epstein survivors and have followed up on this request multiple times, the survivors have not received the promised outreach. Additionally, our offices have not received any substantive responses from the department indicating when the meeting will be scheduled. Recently, reporting revealed that you were present at several meetings last summer in the White House Situation Room with President Trump's closest advisors, confirming that the White House and the department have been more interested in minimizing the damage to President Trump relating to his personal friendship with Jeffrey Epstein than providing transparency to the survivors and holding accountable those who may be implicated in Epstein's crimes. Your responsibility as acting attorney general is to pursue justice, not shield the president. We therefore expect a response no later than July 28, 2026, confirming a date for the meeting with survivors you committed to hold. Just think about that. At the May 19, 2026 hearing where then acting attorney general Blanche testified, he said, yeah, I'll meet with the survivors. Okay. How hard can that be? Meet with them, spend an hour with them. You should spend much longer than them, but spend an hour with them, hear them out. At the least, I think you should spend days with them to hear their story, but spend an hour or two. Instead, Blanche says, I'm going to do it. And then so the senators try to arrange it. They try to coordinate it. Okay, they're ready to meet. Since May 19th, let's set up a meeting date. Ignored. Look, just piece it all together. It makes sense when they're covering up a child sex trafficking ring. They're the cover-uppers. They don't want to meet with the people who they are torturing the people. That's what they're doing. They're the bad guys. The DOJ has become a racketeering enterprise. It's sad and sick to see, but look at their overwhelming behavior about everything right here. Now, this is a video released by the Epstein survivors before today's confirmation hearing. Play this clip.
My name was released.
My phone number was released.
Where I went to school.
Where I live.
My students can now search me and read about my abuse.
I am an Epstein survivor.
I am an Epstein survivor.
I am an Epstein survivor.
We were exposed.
Nude pictures of victims were released.
Our family's safety was put at risk.
Now, Todd Blanche wants to be the Attorney General of the United States.
Todd Blanche had a duty to protect us.
Instead, he protected the people
who committed crimes against us. 30 years.
1,200 victims.
And 6 million files.
A mountain of evidence.
But Todd Blanche says there are no investigative leads.
Todd Blanche failed us.
He failed victims everywhere.
We deserve better.
Our country deserves better.
Vote no on Todd Blanche for Attorney General.
Vote no.
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 No. Vote no on Todd Blanche for Attorney General.
And here is Epstein survivor Jess Michael speaking with Aaron Parnas of the Parnas Perspective and the MeidasTouch Network. Here's what they had to say. Play this clip.
One of your survivor sisters, Danny Bensky, is testifying in front of the Senate, which is going to be a powerful moment. I believe if you had the opportunity to tell senators something today about Todd Blanche and this confirmation, what would you tell them?
That you can't say that an investigation is concluded when you haven't even met with the survivors. When a person that is I don't know if he was Deputy Attorney General last year when he met with Ghislaine Maxwell, but when a Deputy Attorney General meets with the convicted sex trafficker of minors for 9 hours and 0 minutes or hours with survivors, that's problematic. So I would like to ask him and the senators to ask that question. Why would you give 9 hours to the felon and sex trafficker and not even 9 minutes to survivors?
There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Great work, Katie Fang. Subscribe to Katie Fang's YouTube channel as well. Have a good one, everybody.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.